First of all, we need to understand about the ratio and proportion before we getting into the world of slope. Ratio, we generally define it as mathematical comparison way of comparison between two quantities with same units. So ratio, generally it is mathematical way of comparison. However, one thing that you need to understand is this part. We basically compare the same units. So for instance, when I say about some good example, that's how much of a height of Natasha and William in centimeter. It's a good example. Because when it comes to height in Canada, we use metric system. Centimeter is basically what we do. We can use imperial system too. Then in that case, height of Natasha and William in feet, something like that. Bad example can be, for example, like 25 pounds dumbbell versus with 15 kilogram barbell. As you may notice, we're talking about the weight system. However, the difference between those two is 21 pounds LBS and 15 kilogram, those two units, as you may notice, they are not equal or same units each other. That means we cannot directly use ratio. We can basically convert the units and then we can compare those mathematically. So when I mention about this same unit, it is kind of like a constant. In science experiment, you don't change those. Right, then what is proportion? Proportion is a way of showing equal ratio. Two or more. Proportion is basically a mathematical way of showing equal ratios. And when I say equal ratio, it can be more than 2, or some people say more than a pair, to 3. So a good example is, for instance, I can compare 10 pounds kettlebell to compare to 50 pounds dumbbell. That's a good example of how we can use proportion in math. That example can be, for instance, it's kind of correlate to a previous ratio situation. 10 pounds of beef compared to 5.5 kilogram chicken. As you may notice, we are not approaching this question using a same unit because pounds and kilogram, different units, so ratio itself is different. And we can always compare it to everything else as long as we are sharing a same unit. One thing that I want to point it out is ratio and proportion, especially proportion I like to say, because we are comparing the same unit. Can you put that? Eventually the quantity that we're gonna see for every example will be unitless. So let's do one of the classic example. Classic example number 1, which you can find from workbook page 9 to 10 if I recall. A recipe for vegetarian chili contains 56 ounces of chopped tomatoes, 30 ounces of kidney beans, 15 ounces of whole kernel corn, and we need to determine the ratio of corn to kidney beans. And at the same time, B, we need to find the ratio of tomatoes to kidney beans. So let's deal with first one first. The first one, corn to kidney. beans, basically talk about these two ratio. Know the fact that corn should come first. And when it comes to B, ratio of tomato to kidney beans, that is basically comparison of the first one and second one. Again, the order is tomato to kidney beans. So let's do an example at the back. If you use blank pieces of paper, you don't need to divide. If you have a printer and printed this worksheet or lessons document, just follow the way that I do. I'm going to do part A on the left side, part B on the right side. A was talking about determine the ratio of corn to kidney beans. When it comes to ratio, there are two different ways that you do. One of the way is, like what you see, I'm using column and equal sign, which you didn't see it yet, but I'm going to show you. The other way that you do is basically using ratio, using fraction, which is numerator and denominator. It doesn't matter which one you use. First example, I'm going to use my first method using column and equal sign. One thing that you need to understand is, if you look at the question A again, it says the ratio of corn to kidney beans. So corn should come out first, which I put it on the left side over here. Corn, dot, dot, kidney beans. Now after that, you should put an equal sign because this wording ratio will turn out to be our number ratio. And what you need to do is, when it comes to corn, you just need to put the corn amount. In this case, corn is 15 ounces. Dot, dot. And then when it comes to kidney beans, you can put that amount followed by. It is really important to understand that corn comes first, so that means I need to put that certain amount first on the left side of the column. Same thing happened for kidney beans and kidney beans. And now my ratio is 15 ounce to 30 ounce, which I can simplify by divided with greatest common factor is what I want to point it out. Greatest common factor is any number that basically make 15 and 30 by multiplying. And the number has to be greatest. For example, I can divide 15 by 3 so as 30 by 3. But is 3 is the best number? No, it's not. Simplification have to go with all the way to the smallest number in the end. If you look at it, 15 and 30, they have something in common. They have 3 in common, 5 in common, but 15 ultimately is the biggest number. It's the biggest factor. So, long story short, divided by 15 on both sides. Then you will have 1 ounce to 2 ounce situation. Do you remember that when it comes to ratio, I say unitless? Look at the unit, ounce and ounce. They cancel each other. So long story short, this ratio is 1 to 2 ratio. That's how you do the ratio using column and quantity situation. When it comes to B, we are doing basically the same thing except tomato was the one that is mentioned first. Then kidney beans goes to second. From that question on previous page, I know that when it comes to tomato, it is 56 ounce. And kidney beans was 30 ounce. And basically, this has to be simplified. Now, at this point, you may notice 56 and 30. It is really hard to determine greatest common factor like previous one. 15 and 30, some people can do a mental math. However, when it comes to division, if you divide it by 2, then, and I'm going to tell you why I'm asking you to divide it by 2. Because 56, 6 is even number, and 30, 0 is even number ending 2. So if you have a hard time getting into greatest common factor, just divide it by 2, 3, 5, something that is small number. And I'm going to divide it by 2. 56 divided by 2 is basically 23, dot, dot. And I will omit the unit because ounce and ounce, they cancel each other, similar as the previous situation. 30 divided by 2 is 15. As you may notice, 23 and 15. 15 is not, this is not a prime number. But as you may notice, 23 is a prime number. Prime number, in case if you don't remember what it was, prime numbers are the one where you don't have any of a factor. Like something times by something is equal to whatever that number, you cannot figure out. Like 15. This is known as composite number because I can make 15 by doing 5 times 3 easily. But when it comes to 23, you have nothing but 1 times 23. Basically 1 and by itself. Those are known as prime number, and once you have these two situations, one as prime number, another as non-prime number, which is composite number, that's what we need to answer our, or finish simplification, 23 to 15 ratio. That's basically what you need to do. All right, one of our last example for today. Number 2, a big screen TV that Mr. Kim brought has an aspect ratio of 16 to 9 ratio, which means that for every 16 inches of width, the TV is 9 inches high. What is the height of a TV that is 40 inches wide? So basically we have a ratio given, 16 to 2. According to the question, 16 inches of width. So this 16 is basically one of the ratio amount for the width, and 9 basically you may notice it's another type of measurement, which is height or length, if you will. The question gives you this ratio, and the question rather asks you something else. The question is asking, what is our new height if the width is 40 inches? That's what the question is asking. We're going to use basically the same column and ratio situation for the first column method number 1. And like I promised, for students who like fraction situation, I'm going to show you fraction method too. It doesn't matter which method you choose at the end. Let's go with what we are familiar with, the very first method that we did. Method number 1 basically tell you about ratio of width to height. So 16.9. Know the fact that this is width, that's height, because we have to be very consistent. In that situation, you can put basically whatever the given value, in this case 40 inch, that is belong to width, and width is on the left side. So I need to put 40 inches over there, and the height, why don't we put X? You can put H if you want. The good thing about this column method is basically, and some of you guys may hear from Math 10-3 class, whatever that is multiplied from the inside, so when I say inside is these two, and whatever the thing that you multiply from outside, always equal to each other. That's why this method number 1, in my opinion, is easier than others. So 9 times 40 is equal to 16x. Basically, that's what it is. 9 times 30 is 360, and the right side is 16x. As you may notice, 6 and x are multiplying each other, so opposite operation divided by 16 on both sides, so that I can isolate for x. And now this is the part where if you want to use calculator, feel free. 360 divided by 16 give you 22.5. So my x, which is my height, is 22.5 inches. I found that Asian method use this a lot, and I like to say, if you like to go with this, feel free. However, if you like to go with fraction, which I found the Canadian curriculum use a lot, basically it's the same thing, except what I like to do is, whatever the question that is asking, I put it on the top of the fraction, which is numerator. So if I look at it, 16 and 9, height is what the question is asking, put that on the top. Other number ratio, 16, put it at the bottom. Now know the fact that, in this case, height is at the top, width at the bottom. You just need to be consistent on the right side too. Height on the top, width at the bottom. Height, thus will be x in this situation, and my width that is given 40 in that situation. And I just need to simply isolate this value of x, which is opposite operation, it's division. So opposite of division is multiplying, times by 40, times by 40. So on the left side, I have 9 times 40 divided by 16. And unit is inches, in case if you want to know. And you can use calculator, 9 times 40 divided by 16. That gave me exact same number, 22.5. 22.5 inches does equal to my x, which is equal to my height. Two different methods, however, we ended up having the same answer. And that's what it should be. It doesn't matter which method that you choose throughout this course. Your homework is solve every single question on page 11 to 12. It is everything related to ratio situation. That is my lesson for today. Thank you.